December 24th, 2024. Christmas Eve. 39-year-old Sarah Bennett was driving home through a Tennessee blizzard when her headlights caught something in the ditch. A car flipped on its side, hazard lights blinking weakly through the snow, and a man lying half-conscious in the freezing dark, blood running down his face. Sarah pulled over, dragged him into her truck with hands so cold they burned, and saved his life. What she didn't know yet was that this stranger bleeding in her passenger seat was Alexander Grant, billionaire founder of Grant Industries, and the father of the teenage boy who died saving her fiancé's life 20 years earlier. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Most people in Franklin, Tennessee only knew Sarah as the elementary school nurse, who kept a little Christmas tree on her desk year-round and wore her late fiancé's old Marine Corps ball cap when she thought nobody was looking. She was 39 years old, raising her 18-year-old son Caleb on her own, working double shifts, sometimes just to keep the lights on. Ryan had been gone for 20 years now, and people stopped asking about him, stopped bringing it up, but Sarah never stopped missing him. Every Christmas, she hung the same string of colored lights on her front porch. The ones Ryan had put up their first December together, back when they were 23 and planning a wedding and thought they had forever. That night, Christmas Eve, the snow was coming down harder than Franklin had seen in a decade. Sarah's windshield wipers could barely keep up. The roads were empty. Smart people were already home. But Sarah's shift at the elementary school had run late because little Emma Patterson had fallen on the playground and needed stitches, and Sarah had stayed until her mama came. When Sarah's headlights caught the overturned car in the ditch, she didn't hesitate. Didn't think about the storm or the danger or how late it was. She just pulled over, grabbed the flashlight from her glove box, and ran. The man trapped in the driver's seat was older, maybe 65, and he was barely conscious. Blood ran from a gash on his forehead. His lips were blue, and he was clutching something in his hand, a photograph, crumpled and wet, of a teenage boy in a graduation cap and gown, smiling like the whole world was waiting for him. To understand what happened next, you have to go back 20 years. Back to March 2004, when Sarah was 19 years old and Ryan Bennett was the love of her life. They'd been together since high school. Ryan worked nights at the FedEx distribution center to save money for the wedding. Sarah was in nursing school. They had an apartment picked out and a date set for June. Everything was perfect until the night Ryan's shift ended at 2 in the morning and he started driving home on Old Hillsborough Road. The drunk driver came out of nowhere, crossed the center line doing 70, headlights off, too far gone to even know what road he was on. Ryan saw the headlights at the last second. He swerved right, but there wasn't enough time. He was going to get hit head-on. He was going to die. That's when the truck behind him swerved first. A silver pickup driven by 17-year-old Matthew Grant, heading home from his job at the movie theater. Matthew saw what was about to happen and made a choice in less than a second. He jerked his wheel hard to the left, cut in front of Ryan's car, and took the full impact himself. The drunk driver's car hit Matthew's truck, so hard it spun across both lanes and rolled 3 times before landing in a ditch. Ryan's car went off the road too, slammed into a tree, but the angle was different because Matthew had pushed him just far enough. Ryan broke 3 ribs, shattered his left leg, got a concussion that left him seeing double for 2 months. But he lived. Matthew Grant died at the scene, 17 years old, senior at Franklin High School, captain of the debate team, had a full scholarship to Vanderbilt waiting for him in the fall, and he died alone on a dark road because he chose to save a stranger instead of himself. Sarah found out the next morning when the police came to her apartment. They told her Ryan was alive but hurt. They told her about the boy who saved him. They told her his name was Matthew Grant, and his father had already identified the body. Sarah went to the hospital and sat by Ryan's bed and thanked God and cried for a boy she'd never met who gave her the rest of her life. Ryan came home 6 weeks later. He walked with a limp for the rest of his days, had nightmares about headlights and the sound of metal crunching, felt guilty in a way that never quite left. They postponed the wedding, then postponed it again. Ryan started drinking more than he should, got quiet, got distant. Sarah got pregnant with Caleb that fall, and for a while things felt hopeful again. But Ryan never really came all the way back from that night. He died in 2006. Officially, it was a heart attack, but Sarah always wondered if it was something else. If carrying the weight of being saved while someone else died was too much for his heart to hold. She raised Caleb alone, worked as a school nurse, kept Ryan's ball cap, kept the Christmas lights, kept the memory of a boy named Matthew Grant who she never got to thank. If this story is reminding you of someone who saved your life or someone you love, or if you've ever carried the weight of being saved, leave their name in the comments below. Sometimes just saying their name helps keep the memory alive. Alexander Grant had built an empire most people never heard of. Grant Industries, commercial construction, office buildings from Nashville to Atlanta, the kind of quiet wealth that doesn't make headlines but keeps growing year after year. He'd started with nothing, a kid from a trailer park in Murfreesboro who put himself through community college working construction and saved every dollar until he could buy his first property. By 40, he was a millionaire. By 50, he'd built something that would last generations. But none of it mattered after March 2004, after the knock on the door at 3 in the morning, after identifying his son's body at the hospital, after the funeral where half of Franklin showed up because Matthew had touched that many lives in just 17 years. Alexander and his wife Ruth buried their only child on a Tuesday afternoon, and something in both of them died that day too. The police gave them the full report, told them about the drunk driver, told them about Ryan Bennett, the 25-year-old man Matthew saved, told them the angles and the physics, and how Matthew's truck took the impact that would have killed Ryan instantly. Alexander read that report 100 times, memorized every word, tried to find some meaning in it. He wanted to meet Ryan, wanted to see the man his son died for, wanted to know if it was worth it. But when he called the hospital, they said Ryan had been discharged. When he tried to find him through the phone book, there were 18 Bennetts in the Franklin area, and none of them wanted to talk about the accident. Eventually, Alexander stopped looking, but he never stopped thinking about it. Every Christmas Eve for 20 years, Alexander got in his car and drove. He told Ruth he needed air, told himself he was just clearing his head, but really, he drove Old Hillsborough Road, the same stretch where Matthew died. He'd park where the accident happened and sit there in the dark, looking at the memorial cross some of Matthew's friends had put up, and he'd try to make peace with it all. This year, Christmas Eve, 2024, Alexander was driving that road again. Ruth was home preparing dinner. Their house was full of decorations that felt hollow because the person they decorated for was gone. Alexander drove slowly through the snow, past the memorial cross, past the spot where his son took his last breath. And he wasn't paying attention when his car hit black ice at the curve near mile marker 7. The car spun. Alexander tried to correct, but the wheels had no grip. He went sideways, then backwards, then flipped as the shoulder dropped away into the ditch. The airbag deployed. Something hit his head. The world went sideways and then dark. When he came to, he was hanging upside down in his seatbelt, blood running into his eyes, and the cold was seeping in through the broken window. He managed to unbuckle himself, crawled through the window into snow that came up to his chest. His phone was somewhere in the car, but he couldn't find it. His head was spinning. The cold was making everything worse. He tried to climb up to the road, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. So he lay down in the snow, clutching the photograph he kept in his wallet, the one of Matthew at graduation, and he thought maybe this was fair. Maybe dying on the same road where his son died made some kind of cosmic sense. That's when the headlights appeared. A truck, slowing down, pulling over, a woman's voice calling out through the storm. Hands grabbing his coat, pulling him up, dragging him through the snow. Sarah's voice saying, "Stay with me, stay awake, I've got you." And Alexander, half-conscious and freezing, saw her face in the flashlight beam and thought she looked like an angel. If this story is gripping you, if you can feel the weight of that moment, tap the like button. It helps us share stories like this with people who need to be reminded that kindness still shows up in the middle of nowhere. Sarah drove faster than she should have through that blizzard, talking the whole way to keep Alexander conscious. Asking his name, asking where he hurt, asking if he had family. Alexander mumbled answers, said his name, said his wife Ruth was waiting, said he'd been driving Old Hillsborough Road. And then, delirious with cold and pain, he said something that made Sarah's hands tighten on the wheel. He said he was visiting his son's grave. Said his son died on that road 20 years ago. Said his name was Matthew. Sarah went completely still. The truck swerved slightly before she corrected. She asked, quietly, "Matthew Grant?" Alexander's eyes opened wider. He stared at her through the blood and the confusion and said, "Yes. How do you know that name?" Sarah started crying. Right there, driving through a blizzard with a bleeding stranger in her passenger seat, she started crying so hard she could barely see. She said, "Because your son saved my fiancé's life. Because Ryan Bennett was the man Matthew died for. Because I've wanted to thank you for 20 years and I never knew how to find you." Alexander didn't say anything. He just stared at her, this woman who'd pulled him from the snow, and understood that God or fate or something bigger than both of them had brought them together on the same road where Matthew died. Sarah got Alexander to the emergency room in Columbia. The doctors said another 30 minutes in that cold and he wouldn't have made it. Hypothermia, severe concussion, lacerations, but alive. Sarah left her phone number at the desk with instructions to call her if he needed anything. Then she drove home, her hands still shaking, and told Caleb what had happened. Caleb, who was 18 now, who'd never met his father, who'd grown up hearing stories about the brave boy who saved his daddy's life. Christmas morning came quiet and white. Sarah woke up early, made coffee, started the same Christmas traditions she'd kept for 20 years. She was hanging Ryan's old stocking on the mantel, the one she'd saved all these years, when the doorbell rang. Alexander Grant stood on her front porch. He was bandaged and bruised, leaning on a cane, wearing a coat that probably cost more than Sarah's car. His wife Ruth was beside him, a small, elegant woman with kind eyes. And Alexander was holding a wooden box in his trembling hands. Sarah opened the door, didn't say anything, just looked at this man she'd saved and who'd lost everything to save someone she loved. Alexander opened the box. Inside were Matthew's dog tags, the ones he'd worn every day of his short life. The ones Alexander had kept on his dresser for 20 years, touching them every morning like a prayer. Alexander's voice cracked when he spoke. He said, "My boy gave his life so yours could keep going. I came to say thank you for showing me it mattered." What would you do at that moment? If the father of the person who saved your loved one showed up on your porch on Christmas morning, what would you say? Tell us in the comments below. Sarah couldn't speak. She just pulled Alexander into a hug, this stranger who wasn't a stranger, and they both cried on her front porch while snow fell around them. Ruth cried too, and Caleb, standing in the doorway, understood for the first time that he was alive, because a 17-year-old boy he'd never met made a choice in less than a second 20 years ago. They went inside. Sarah made coffee and hot chocolate. They sat around her little kitchen table. This woman who'd spent 20 years wishing she could say thank you, and this couple who'd spent 20 years wondering if their son's death meant anything. And they told stories. About Matthew's laugh and Ryan's stubbornness. About how Matthew wanted to be a lawyer and how Ryan loved Christmas lights. About the weight they'd both carried and the grief that never quite healed. Alexander didn't ask for anything. He just wanted Sarah to know that pulling him from that snow, saving his life on the same road where his son died, felt like Matthew reaching across 20 years to say it was okay. That the circle was complete somehow. That sacrifice and kindness and love don't disappear. They just wait for the right moment to come back around. Sarah took the dog tags from the box and hung them on her Christmas tree, right next to the photo of Ryan in his Marine Corps uniform. Two young men who never met but whose lives were forever connected by one moment of terrible, beautiful bravery. That was 5 years ago now. Every Christmas Eve, Alexander and Ruth drive to Franklin. They have dinner at Sarah's house. Ruth brings her famous coconut cake. Alexander plays chess with Caleb, who's in graduate school now studying engineering. They talk about Matthew and Ryan like they're both still there somehow, present in the laughter and the lights and the love that fills that little house. Alexander set up a scholarship fund at Franklin High in Matthew's name. Sarah helped him choose the recipients every year. Kids who show kindness without expecting anything back. Kids who stop to help. Kids who choose courage when it costs them something. Last year, they gave out 5 scholarships. This year, it'll be 10. The dog tags stay on Sarah's tree year-round now. Caleb calls Alexander and Ruth his grandparents. And every Christmas morning, before they open presents, they all drive out to Old Hillsborough Road together. They stand at the memorial cross, the 4 of them in the cold, and they say Matthew's name out loud. They say Ryan's name. They say thank you. And they leave flowers in the snow. If you've ever believed that one life saved can echo across 20 years and land on your porch on Christmas morning, if you've ever witnessed the way grief and gratitude can become the same thing, drop a heart in the comments and tell us where you're watching from tonight. And if you want more stories about the unexpected ways love comes back around, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We'll see you in the next one. Merry Christmas.